Some choices say more about you than years of thinking ever could. Not because they are intelligent decisions, but because they happen before intelligence takes control. In this moment, you are about to make one of those choices. In front of you are 4 cats. They may look simple, even ordinary, but they are not. Each one carries a different emotional presence, a different psychological tension, a different message from your unconscious. Before your mind starts comparing breeds, colors, or meanings, stop. Take a slow breath. Let your eyes rest naturally. Notice which cat pulls your attention without effort, without reason, without explanation. This is important. Do not analyze. The moment you try to explain your choice, you move away from what this test is designed to reveal. Carl Jung believed that the unconscious speaks through symbols long before it speaks through words. It communicates through attraction, discomfort, curiosity, and silence. The cat you feel drawn to is not random. It reflects a hidden psychological force currently influencing your emotions, your decisions, and the way you move through life, even if you are not consciously aware of it yet. Choose now, quietly, instinctively, and hold that image in your mind. Before we go any further, take a quiet moment. If one of the cats already stood out to you, hold that image in your mind. And when you feel ready, you can leave a simple comment with the number of the cat you chose. Not to explain it, not to justify it, just to mark the choice. Many people are surprised by how seeing others' choices brings clarity to their own. Then stay with the image you selected, because what it reflects is already active in your inner world, and the next part will help you recognize it more clearly. If you chose the first cat, you are deeply connected to autonomy. This cat represents a psyche that values independence, not as rebellion, but as survival. You are someone who needs internal space to breathe, think, and exist without constant intrusion. From an early age, you may have sensed that relying too heavily on others came with emotional cost, disappointment, or loss of control. As a result, you learn to rely on yourself. You observe before you act. You retreat when necessary. You protect your inner world carefully. People drawn to this cat often appear calm, reserved, or even distant. But beneath that surface lives a sharp awareness of boundaries. In Jungian terms, this reflects a strong ego structure, one that has learned how to preserve identity in environments that felt overwhelming or unpredictable. Your strength lies in self-sufficiency. You are capable of standing alone without collapsing into loneliness. However, this independence carries a subtle tension. When autonomy becomes armor, it can slowly turn into isolation. You may struggle to ask for help, not because you do not need it, but because vulnerability feels like surrender. Trust does not come easily to you. You often test people silently, watching their consistency over time. This cat reveals both resilience and restraint. Your growth does not require you to abandon independence. It asks you to soften it selectively, to recognize that connection does not always threaten freedom. Ask yourself, where in your life are you protecting yourself out of habit rather than necessity? And where might allowing someone closer actually strengthen rather than weaken who you are? If you chose the second cat, your inner world is shaped by sensitivity and quiet perception. This cat represents a psyche that feels deeply but reveals itself carefully. You are someone who notices what others miss. Subtle changes in tone, emotional shifts, moments of tension that are never spoken aloud. While some people move through life loudly, reacting immediately, you move inward first. You process before you respond. You feel before you speak. From a Jungian perspective, this cat reflects a strong relationship with the inner observer, the part of the psyche that watches, absorbs, and makes meaning in silence. You may have learned early on that expressing everything you feel did not always lead to understanding. So instead, you developed emotional intelligence. You learned restraint. You learned how to sit with complexity without needing to resolve it immediately. Silence, for you, is not emptiness. It's a space where thoughts organize themselves and emotions become clearer. People drawn to this cat often appear composed, even mysterious. Others may project calm onto you, assuming that because you are quiet, you are unaffected. But this is rarely true. Your emotional life is rich, layered, and intense, just carefully contained. This depth, however, comes with an internal challenge. When emotions are held too long without expression, they do not fade, they settle. Over time, this can create a quiet heaviness, a feeling of being emotionally full but unseen. You may feel tired without a clear reason, or disconnected even when surrounded by people. This cat reveals not emotional weakness, but emotional compression. You are strong enough to carry a lot, but strength does not mean you must carry everything alone. Jung believed that what remains unexpressed in the psyche eventually seeks expression in other ways, through fatigue, withdrawal, or a sense of meaninglessness. Your growth lies not in becoming louder, but in becoming more selective with your openness. Not everyone deserves access to your inner world, but someone should. When your depth is shared with the right presence, it becomes wisdom rather than weight. Ask yourself, where in your life are you holding back words that need to be spoken? Where has silence protected you, and where has it begun to limit you? This cat is not asking you to change who you are. It is inviting you to trust that your inner voice, when allowed to emerge, has the power to create connection rather than threaten it. If you chose the third cat, your psyche is driven by movement, curiosity, and inner change. This cat represents a mind that is rarely still, not because it is anxious, but because it is alive. You are someone who senses when a phase of life has expired, even if everything on the surface appears fine. Comfort for you can slowly become confinement. Routine drains your energy. Repetition makes you restless. You are drawn to new experiences, new ideas, new versions of yourself, not out of confusion, but out of an instinctive understanding that growth requires motion. From a Jungian perspective, this cat reflects a strong connection to individuation, the ongoing process of becoming who you are beneath habits, roles, and expectations. You are less interested in fixed identities and more attracted to possibility. You do not ask, "Who am I?" as much as, "Who am I becoming?" This forward-moving psyche gives you adaptability. You recover quickly from endings. You are willing to let go of what no longer fits, even when others cling to what is familiar. This makes you resilient, inventive, and quietly courageous. Yet this same drive carries an inner tension. Constant movement can sometimes function as avoidance. When change happens too quickly, it may protect you from having to sit with unresolved emotions or difficult truths. You may fear stagnation, but beneath that fear lies something deeper, the fear of being trapped in a version of yourself that no longer feels true. Waiting can feel unbearable to you, not because you lack discipline, but because stillness feels like regression. Jung warned that transformation without reflection risks becoming escape rather than growth. This cat invites you to examine your pace. Are you moving towards something meaningful or away from something uncomfortable? Your strength lies in evolution, but your balance lies in intention. Not every chapter needs to end immediately. Some transformations require pause before they can fully take form. Ask yourself, where in your life are you changing out of alignment rather than clarity? This cat is not asking you to stop evolving. It is asking you to become conscious of why you evolve. When movement is guided by awareness, it becomes freedom rather than restlessness, and growth becomes grounded instead of endless. If you chose the fourth cat, you are drawn to what exists beneath the surface. This cat represents the shadow, the part of the psyche that Carl Jung described as everything we learn to hide in order to be accepted, loved, or safe. From an early age, you may have sensed that certain aspects of who you are did not fit easily into the world around you. Perhaps your intensity was misunderstood. Perhaps your sensitivity, ambition, anger, or independence felt like too much for others. Over time, you learned to contain these traits, not because they were wrong, but because they were powerful. What cannot be easily understood is often pushed into silence. Choosing this cat suggests that your unconscious is calling attention to what has been suppressed, ignored, or left unclaimed. The shadow is not something negative, it is simply unconscious, and within it lives enormous potential. The parts of yourself you were taught to hide often contain your greatest strength, creativity, and authenticity. However, what remains hidden does not disappear. Jung believed that the shadow, when left unexamined, expresses itself indirectly through self-sabotage, emotional reactions, or conflict with others. You may notice strong responses towards certain people, irritation, judgment, envy, or even admiration that feels disproportionate. These reactions are not accidents, they are mirrors. They reflect qualities you either deny in yourself or long to reclaim. This cat reveals both depth and resilience. You have learned how to survive psychological complexity. You understand pain, not as weakness, but as information. This gives you a rare capacity for empathy, but it also places a responsibility on you. Growth, for you, does not come from eliminating the shadow. It comes from integrating it consciously. Ask yourself, which parts of me am I still hiding to maintain harmony or approval? What truths am I avoiding because acknowledging them would require change? This cat is not asking you to confront everything at once. It is inviting you to walk beside your shadow with awareness rather than fear. When the hidden is brought into consciousness, it loses its power to control you from the dark and becomes a source of grounded strength instead of quiet conflict. Now that each cat has revealed its meaning, one truth becomes clear. Your choice was never a label, it was a signal. Each cat represents a psychological force that exists within every human being: autonomy, sensitivity, transformation, and shadow. When the hidden is brought into consciousness, it loses its power to control you from the dark and becomes a source of grounded strength instead of quiet conflict. Now that each cat has revealed its meaning, one truth becomes clear. Your choice was never a label, it was a signal. Each cat represents a psychological force that exists within every human being: autonomy, sensitivity, transformation, and shadow. You are not defined by one of these forces alone. At different moments in life, one rises to the surface while the others remain quieter, waiting. Carl Jung believed that true psychological growth does not come from identifying with a single trait, but from integration. When one part of the psyche dominates without awareness, imbalance forms. Independence without connection becomes isolation. Sensitivity without expression becomes emotional weight. Transformation without grounding becomes restlessness. Shadow without consciousness becomes self-sabotage. Your chosen cat simply shows where your energy is currently concentrated. The others reveal what may be underdeveloped, neglected, or asking to be acknowledged. Growth begins when you recognize this dynamic honestly, without judgment or urgency. As you move forward, pay attention to your reactions. Notice when you pull away, when you remain silent, when you feel the urge to change everything, or when discomfort surfaces without a clear reason. These moments are not flaws, they are messages. They indicate which inner force is asking for balance, not suppression. Individuation, as Jung described it, is not a destination you reach once. It is a process you return to again and again through awareness, choice, and courage. Wholeness is not about eliminating parts of yourself. It is about allowing opposing qualities to coexist consciously: strength and vulnerability, stillness and movement, light and shadow. When these forces are acknowledged rather than resisted, inner conflict softens, the psyche becomes less divided. Your path forward is not about choosing the right cat. It is about learning how to recognize each part of yourself when it appears and responding with understanding rather than fear. That is where real psychological freedom begins. As we close this reflection, take a moment to notice what stayed with you. If you felt seen, unsettled, or quietly understood, that is not accidental. These symbols tend to linger because they touch something already alive inside you. If you'd like to continue exploring this inner terrain, you'll find other reflections waiting for you in the cards and in the playlist on your screen. Each one reveals a different layer of the psyche, and together they form a deeper map of self-understanding. And before you go, leave a single word in the comments. Aware. Not as an opinion, not as an explanation, but simply as a signal that you stayed until the end and allowed yourself to reflect. Sometimes one word is enough to mark a moment of clarity,